couple years later. So thanks CBS for keeping me occupied off the streets and out of trouble for 30 years. And I was actually probably destined to work at CBS. My very first job out of high school, Loyola High School, I graduated at the age of 16. I was working down the street from TV City. So I used to take rapid transit. It's called RTD back in the day, rapid transit. Now it's MTA or some other name right now. Get off on the corner of Beverly and Fairfax, and I'd see this building with the initial CBS on it, and it was my dad's initials. So every day I'd see that, and I'd work down the street at an executive adjuster's place, because as a typist, I typed something like 100 words a minute back then. But every day I'd see the building, and like, who knew that I would eventually work there someday? I mean, that wasn't anything that was on my radar. But anyway, my start with show cost kind of coincided with the advent of PCs for finance accounting for CBS. Because back then we had like one PC for accounting and 2 or 3 in finance. Schindler was in financial planning, so they got more. They got 2 or 3, and they shared it. There was a Bay Area where everyone had to share, so they pretty much shared it with the entire 3rd floor, and we had one for show costs for about 10 people. But it's not like there was, but it's not like there was any scheduling conflict where you had to sign up to use it, because no one really knew how to use it except for John, myself, and Rich Coolidge, and I guess Rich Ginger on the other side. So anyway, at the very beginning, we were just transferring all the manual spreadsheets to Lotus. So Lotus was, at the time, the trending app for software for accounting. So we were putting everything into Lotus on the PCs. 34 years later, everyone has an individual PC and their own printer, and reports are updating in real time and being generated as needed. Which I've always wondered, it's like, now what does everyone do with all their spare time? Because back in the day, all our time was spent just putting the information into the PCs, generating the reports, and now the reports come out just like that. But I don't know, it doesn't seem like we're any more efficient or get that much more done than we did 30 years ago. Then again, we had a lot more staff back in the day. And like everything else in life, the nature of the business has changed for the network. We now have a proliferation of reality programming that's cheaper for us and garners an audience, which we didn't have back in the day. We also produce a lot, if not most of our programming. When I first started with CBS, it was in 1984, the day after closing ceremonies for the Olympics. Networks weren't allowed to produce their own programming or own their content. Back then, there were like 3 or 4 networks: ABC, CBS, NBC. And people were worried about having a stranglehold or a monopoly on broadcasting. But with the development and advancement of cable and satellite, networks felt or became disadvantaged compared to the cable companies who were allowed to own their content. So back then, the networks aligned with each other and lobbied the FCC and Congress to deregulate the industry so that the networks would be able to own the content. So that takes us back to when we were working on the FISR, Financial Interest Syndication Rules project, which some of us were involved in.
That's lovely.
And I think all the networks pretty much did the same thing. I mean, we were tasked with summarizing and providing detail for a 10-year block of programming. So it was all the program costs and hours that we had from like 1979 to 1988. And I think all the other networks did likewise. And back then we saved them on the large floppy disks, which we actually still have. I've never thrown it. But anyway, now, I mean, back then it was like they said that, we wouldn't automatically buy our own product just because we were producing the product. It'd still be arm's length transaction, and it was a business, so you'd still just buy the best product that was available, whether you produced it yourself or whether you got it from an outside producer like Universal TV or Lorimar or whatever. But now we look at our programming, and pretty much most, if not all, of our programming is produced by CBS. So things have changed in that regard. And but with all that, one thing I don't get is TV has improved each year. So we have the capability now of watching everything in HD or 4K or what have you. And we have these giant 70-inch flat screens, so you pretty much have, you know, like a movie theater experience available to you, but yet tons of people watch all the great programming on little tiny screens in the little smartphones and laptops. So that's something I just don't understand. Anyway, for those, some of you went to the Service Awards, so some of this is a rerun for you. You've heard this before, so please bear with me. But my first 20 years went by in a flash, and the last 13 have been lightning fast. At my 20th anniversary, I said that I had spent my time accumulating a ton of paperwork, and that I would spend the next 10 years trying to get rid of them. So that didn't work out so well, because now I'm under a time crunch to get rid of everything by the end of this week. And through that, I've always doubted that John's ever really known my true responsibilities here. You know, for a while he would tell people that I worked with liabilities and such. My actual job was to accumulate the paper, collect the documents, reports, magazines, for historical purposes. But anything to help the paper industry. And unfortunately, I didn't invest in paper companies early on. Otherwise, I probably would have been able to retire even earlier than my early retirement now. But anyway, when Ken Stowe retired, we named the lunchroom after him. So it's called the Ken Stowe Coffee Room. My only goal all these years was to have either a storage room or closet or file cabinet. Anyway, I've had the opportunity to work with many of you over the years. I want to thank you all for all your help over the last few decades. And we already mentioned a couple of the people that I was planning to mention tonight, Rich Ginger and Rich Coolidge, and Alan Takaguchi was going to come also. But when I first came into show cost, we used to, I guess it's safe to tell people now, we used to at lunchtime go to Pan Pacific Park, which was adjoining TV City, and play basketball during lunch. And we played basketball with Ron Hill. And but anyway, at that time we decided to put a team together. So we entered an adult basketball entertainment league at Beverly Hills High School. So we actually did pretty well the first year. We came in second place. And the second year, we won the championship. So Rich Coolidge, I shared offices with Rich Coolidge when I first came to show cost, and he was just telling me out there that I took a nap and he was doing all the work. But anyway, Rich Coolidge was our power forward. And then Rich Ginger was our point guard. Rich Ginger was in financial planning at the time that I came to show cost, and recently, for the last 31 years, he's been the finance bigwig at the Bold and Beautiful. So he moved down the hall from financial planning to Bold and Beautiful. And Alan Takaguchi is still over at TV City, and he was a point guard also. So these were my teammates. And the year after we won the championship, I guess I failed to mention that was a 6 foot and under league. So we were pretty good for our height. But the following year, we kind of got ambitious and entered the open league, where we were playing with all the taller guys. And we actually were still pretty good, but it's our tall guys who couldn't hang with the tall guys in the other team. But, you know, we didn't do as well. And then even after that, we started playing at Fairfax High, and then we entered another league at Hollywood High School, where Jerry Brandt and Haig participated on those teams, with Jerry Brandt and I kind of co-coaching the team off and on. And Haig used to blog about it on paper. He would do the write-ups at the games. So also, as is my custom, whenever I have a chance to speak, is I'd like to mention and acknowledge Gary McCarthy, who is the former senior vice president of finance, who suddenly passed way too early at the age of 60. I mean, at the time, we still thought that he was an older gentleman, but right now, it's like, now that a lot of us are kind of in that neighborhood, it's kind of like, yeah, that is way too early for in the past. He was extremely well qualified and an engaging speaker for events like this. But more important, he knew everyone's name, was friendly with everyone, knew something about everyone, so that if he ran into you in the street or in the hallway, he could converse with you and ask what's going on. And he was a pleasure to work with and for. Also, I came in through the internal audit road. There were 3 of us that came in that way. So Georgette Morrow was the first who came into accounting finance from corporate audit, and Randy Schlatter worked with her in audit and came in also, and I was the 3rd. So just yesterday, Randy called and he was lamenting with me about that he's going to be the only one left of the old audit group that's still in accounting finance. Things have basically come full circle for me in my career in certain respects. When I was born, we lived near the corner of 35th Street in Vermont, which is right next to the USC campus. But when USC expanded, my dad had to move, so they moved a few blocks north from 35th Place to 25th Street, where we bought a residence. So right now, USC's baseball stadium is where the baseball stadium and tennis center are where we used to live. And a few years ago, for those of you who don't know, I was in the USC Trojan Marching Band when I was in school. The USC Marching Band put my name on a plaque as part of USC's Wall of Troy, and that's actually located right pretty close to the corner where we live. Come on here. Okay, so let me go back to the beginning. So, like I said, our company has changed dramatically over the years. When I first started, we had records. We had CBS records. So the stars at the time were Michael Jackson and Bruce Springsteen, and that's where all the money came from. We had CBS Songs, CBS Music Publishing, Records International. They owned Rogers Musical Instruments, the New York Yankees, and actually that's where Jerry McCarthy had been before. He had been with the New York Yankees and he came to CBS. So that was when I first joined internal audit. So early on, I had pretty much all expense paid trips to Minneapolis, St. Paul, Dallas, Fort Worth, CBS Black Rock in New York, and because our West Coast audit team was responsible for everything west of the Mississippi, all the CBS units west of the Mississippi, we could travel internationally also. So I got to go to Auckland, New Zealand, Sydney, Australia. Those were for records, and to Hong Kong for a book publishing company. And the neat thing about that is that traveling internationally, the round trip airfare was paid for. So what we would do is on the way back, we could stop over anywhere else, and it wouldn't cost us any more to go there, so we would take our vacation days on the way back from these 6-week audits and take a week off somewhere. So I got to go to Bora Bora and Tokyo, Japan on the way back from these audits. So when I was in college, I was saying that I was having so much fun and excitement, with music, from playing with the marching band and such, and traveling with football and basketball teams, that I needed to balance all that out by taking accounting. So that's why I got into accounting. And back when I moved into show cost from audit, Hugh Del Regno was controller back then. And I had to promise him that I would stay at least 1 year with show cost before moving on, because he wanted at least a little bit of continuity. And my actual plan was to stay for 2 years, because I wanted to take advantage of all the great CBS benefits that I had just had from working with CBS. So we were the young whippersnappers at the time. And at the time when we came in, I thought the accounting finance group was kind of like an aging group, because you had Mary Riccio, Sylvia Zimmett, Leo LeCourc, Hugh Del Regno were a little bit older. But now I look around and it's kind of like where a lot of us are kind of in the same boat right now for.
Speak for yourself. Speak for yourself.
So anyway, like I said, my 2-year plan was to take advantage of the benefits, and it's good that I have those benefits because in recent years, in between caring for my disabled older brother and 95-year-old mom with Alzheimer's who recently had a stroke, I myself have been hospitalized twice. The first time I had a heart block, which was an electrical kind of thing where my heart would stop because the electrical impulse wouldn't go through. And at that time, they considered putting a pacemaker in me. But it turned out that it was medically induced with one of the blood pressure medicines that I was taking. So that was one of the rare side effects of that medicine. And between my mom and myself, we're the ones where all the rare side effects actually happen. So anytime there's a rare side effect, it's like convince the doctor that yes, it's bad, and that's what's happening to us. It's not what they think it is. And second time more recently, it was in 2016. I had diabetic ketoacidosis, and just with all the commercials these days, I hear now that can be fatal. So I'm lucky to have survived that. But I most definitely am looking forward to getting more than 2 hours of sleep a night. So when people ask me if I have great plans, what I'm planning to do is like, yeah, the very first thing I'm planning to do is like take a nap, get some sleep, and then see what it's like again to get a few more hours of sleep. I mentioned full circle before. It's interesting that one of the reasons why I got into accounting in the first place is because it was one of the accepted majors for joining the FBI. And now just a week ago, LinkedIn sent me an email with job listings in the greater Los Angeles area, and the one thing that caught my eye immediately was finance accounting expert for the Federal Bureau of Investigation. I'm like, yeah. Anyway, 34 years later, and like they say, better late than never, I'm now finally getting around to my initial 2-year plan. CBS. So now I just have to figure out what to do when I grow up. So, thank you, everyone.